peeps, Bob the Dragon, Datamagnet, Cat Crab Lobster, DuckMachine, Astraya the Dreamer, Mezec, Feudic Jarl, and Casper Arnholtz, thank you very much. Case Studies on Miscommunication, written by AlphaBeetle. The veil had lifted only 3 months earlier. What lifting actually entails only as a Star Lab eggheads can't tell. But for us regular folks, it's enough to know that people no longer went nuts when they touched it. It just, quit. Became normal space overnight. Entire swaths of the galaxy, so far outside the reach of any known species, had suddenly turned into a wide, open expanse. No one in the entire Confederation knew what to expect. So, galactic governance being what it is, the veil was immediately declared forbidden until the politicians could sort themselves out. And of course, the peoples of the galaxy being as they are, they were in immediate and simultaneous rush of hopefuls and desperates, entrepreneurs and criminals, and just overly curious individuals over the new found border. For the first time in a millennium, there was an unknown part of the galaxy to explore and settle, and the whole Confederation was electrified. Myself, I absolutely hated it. See, I worked then for the Inhabited Rim Lighthouse and Rescue Service, about 2 steps down from the Confederate Galactic Bureau of Citizen Logistics, Migration, and Internal Displacement. Quite a mouthful, isn't it? Border butlers, we used to call ourselves, since our job was mainly bowing and scraping to some galactic high official or hyper-rich vacuum head come to the border for secret research or extreme entertainment, and then get them back out when they inevitably got into trouble. If it wasn't engine failure, it was a missed jump followed by a quick evacuation from the veil and a transfer to rehabilitation. Or food poisoning. An obscure and thankless job, and literally as far from everything that you could get, but it paid well. Gotta feed the family, you know. Anyhow, when the veil came down, the Bureau put us butlers in charge of keeping the border closed. We were completely unequipped for that, obviously. And to stir up the pot, every damn polity bordering on the veil posted their own security forces on border plane. The Confederation sent us reinforcements too. Police, coordinators, medical staff, you name it. Usually with wildly conflicting orders and extremely muddy chains of command. As a result, the whole region was a perfect mess, and we found ourselves toiling day and night to regain some semblance of order. Me and my crew were amongst the first to meet the people of the Veil. You know, I'm quite proud of that, the circumstances of meeting notwithstanding. Few people in the galaxy have ever seen one of their kind. The Veilites are a mysterious species, the only species in the galaxy to have developed completely in isolation of any other sentience, and they're not too keen on contact to this day. Though I think anyone suddenly discovering a whole bunch of previously unknown sentients co-inhabiting their galaxy would turn out a bit wary. But developed they had. Oh yes, wise apes, they call themselves, actually. And that is certainly not an understatement. But I digress. The meeting, like I said, I worked for the rescue service. I was a border plane overseer, so I had a personal crew, and a station right on the exit of the main faster-than-light lane. Any vessel on that lane would come to a 90-degree angle to the border plane, which made it easy and cheap to monitor it with sensors. Then again, no one crossing the plane illegally would use the official lane. But in theory, it worked brilliantly. That particular week had been crazy enough already, with dozens of illegal jumps, most of which we apprehended, but many of which got away too. The closer you could get to the official lane before jumping, the less fuel you had to burn at the other end. So our days were a near constant game of cops and robbers. Illegal explorers tried to skirt as close to the station as they could, and we tried to grab them before they could go super. We had just returned from a failed raid, and the whole team was positively exhausted. I was half asleep in my chair in the operations room, wearing my absolutely filthy boarding gear from the second day in a row. I hadn't eaten. It was Hillian Sib in Atravius, who is a cheating louse and should never play cards against, by the way. That shook me out of my coma. "Overseer, there's a signature," I groaned. I hadn't called my mates and our children in more than 2 weeks. I had just realized. So, to top of my misery off, I now felt both lonely and guilty. And now that call would have to wait again. I stretched and tried to compose myself, shedding some matted scales in the process. "Where?" I mumbled, trying to focus on the projection showing the lane exit area.
It's rather far inside the veil, Overseer,"
reported Seeb uncertainly. The strong form's massive limbs moved dexterously over the sensor controls. I tilted my ears in puzzlement. "A returning explorer," I suggested. Kiki, my boarding advisor, shook her tail dismissively.
"Unlikely, Overseer,"
opined Kiki.
"Towards known space is the tighter jump. Revealing one's presence so brazenly is just asking to be arrested." A suspicious tail flick. "Strange behavior."
I waited for the alternatives. The unknown vessel stood still. "All right," I decided. "Whatever the situation, we're going to board and inspect them. Master Odo Vemek, prepare to—"
"Pre-jump signature,"
interrupted Seeb. "Landing on the, stars around, right in the station." My sluggish brain didn't manage to process the report properly before the spacious operations room was lit by a flash, and a tremendous bang echoed through the corridors. I spun out of my chair, stunners down, and came face to face with the first veil light I ever met. I have to tell you, I was so taken aback that I didn't even know what to think. 2 aliens had, as far as I could tell, materialized out of thin air in the middle of my operations room. They were somewhat shorter than me, coming up only to about chest height, covered from top to bottom in deep black clothing. They seemed precariously balanced on but 2 unproportionately long and gangly appendages. They stared at us. We stared back. I aimed my stunners. "This is Confederation Station. Identify yourself," I demanded, my implants cycling programs at top speed in search of common language. In return, I got a burst of sound speech, or a bunch of gibberish, as far as my translator could tell. One of the aliens stepped forward menacingly, and I squeezed the trigger, firing from a half-hunched position as I was. The stun round caught the forward alien straight in the center, reversing its movement mid-step. The invader flew back, rolling across the floor, and immediately bounced back into a standing position. Both the, obviously quite tough, aliens screamed in anger or fear or some other emotion that I could not tell, and in front of my astonished eyes, they disappeared. In a flash of light and the weird non-blast of air rushing to fill a void, the aliens were gone. First stunned silence reigned the room. My mind was now anything but asleep, trying desperately to make sense of what I'd just seen.
I think they just jumped, Overseer,"
said Seeb, staring at the sensor terminal. I felt like I should protest, even though I had witnessed the event myself. Individuals using faster-than-light travel was a ridiculous idea, like space vessels navigating by sight or colonies on stars. A bedtime story.
"Security breach on layer 4,
reported Kiki crisply. I buried my astonishment for later and unlocked my helmet from the chair. Whatever they were intruding on my station. "Odo, your team with me, stunners and maximum power," I barked as I strode out of the operations room. Odo's security detail scrambling up from behind me. On the comnet, I could already hear reports, orders of stun fire as the station mobilized around us. The hunt was on. The following hour or so was utter chaos. As far as I could tell, no more aliens had appeared, though it was hard to tell since the original 2 seemed to be everywhere at once. Every time a team would back them into a corner, they would be gone in a flash, reappearing somewhere else inside the station. Had that been their only trick, perhaps the chase would have been over sooner. Though I guess, in the end, it was better for all of us that it wasn't. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
"Overseer, they just slipped through the bulkhead,"
reported one of my troopers just as I arrived to the scene on layer 4. And so they did. Repeatedly, too. I saw it happen twice. The aliens walked through the solid metal wall as if it was water, or dropping through the crate as if it wasn't there. They overrode the security lockdown by touching it. Blink sighed, the most upset engineering insectoid in the reactor room. This was about half an hour into the chase, and I was getting both tired and annoyed. As it seemed, out of the shifty bipedals could also jump several times their height, stick to the walls, and push adult strongforms. Well, you get the picture. But let me tell you, after the 6th or 7th technological miracle you witness, impossible feats become less and less of an existential problem, and more of a tactical one. We realized quickly that the aliens' movement was not random, and that the more esoteric tricks were only used as a last-ditch escape. Their teleportation never deposited them in a room with any personnel. For example, the aliens seemed unable or unwilling to leave the station itself. And finally, after much contrived maneuvering, trial and error, and several bruised and unconscious troopers, we managed to corner the intruders in a comms array maintenance corridor. Outside was nothing but the cold void of space. In the room around and below were my troops, as well as interspersed through all the open spaces of the station. We had the intruders surrounded. I carefully approached the strange creatures, stunners held high. So far, all attempts at communication had failed. "Don't resist! Just tell me who you are!" I tried once again. The translation programs already running through quite obscure languages and dialects. Sound-based languages on every frequency. Nothing. Light-based languages on every frequency. Nothing. Where the hell were these things from? The obvious answer was pulsing in the back of my head, though I had tried to ignore it. The veil. These were creatures from beyond the veil. "We don't want to use force," I repeated, trying to sound calm and confident. The aliens clung to each other and pressed tighter against the base of the station's main comms tower, letting out high-pitched yelps and chitters. What I assumed to be their heads turning rapidly from left to right, scanning the approaching security detail. Slowly, the ring of troops around the two aliens tightened. Suddenly, one of them whipped around, as if realizing what they were leaning against. It had a sudden, terrible premonition as a small, black-clad creature pressed both of its appendages against the thick bundles of cables, strange sparks appearing in the air. My headset came alive with Seeb's alarmed voice. "Overseer, how comes the ray sending without programming?" I hastened my approach. The other aliens were blocking my line of fire. "Signature!" yelled Seeb. "From an unknown vessel, something is—" The channel broke down into static. With a hiss, I lunged for the intruder. The other one screamed, and there was all warning I got. The two small aliens slid out of my reach as the hallway we were standing in stretched bizarrely, in contempt of all known laws of physics. Shunts and connectors screamed and fizzled along the entire corridor. Light fixtures exploded in sprays of plastic shrapnel. In previously non-existent spaces, warped geometries folded over and over again upon themselves. Violent nausea hit me like a kick to the gut. Through my terror, I thought of my family, assured that I would never see them again. Only at that moment did I realize the true identity of the little aliens that had evaded us so handily, and the playground nature of our chase. For, far between slipping slices of reality, stepped a truly terrifying creature. A perfectly translated message thundered over the comm channels, through shattering firewalls, pulsing itself through our implants and straight into our minds. The adult alien bared its fangs and roared its challenge. "Take your hands off my children right this very moment!" End of story. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if you do, please consider supporting the author, even by popping over and leaving a thumbs up or a nice comment, just to show your appreciation for the story. However, if you wish to support this channel, there are links down below which will help immensely. I will see you all in the next one, and until then, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Cheers.